Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. We're also on the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports show. Our website is nessp.info. Check it out. We have our shows, information, guest bios, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on the Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How you doing today?
Good morning, Mac. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, Jack. I mean, we've just finished up our weekly broadcast with today with our This Week in Sports. When football season kicks off, and we'll go back to the football show where we'll cover the NFL in depth. But till then anyway, we have our This Week in Sports where we kind of review all the big stories. We also have Robert Butler from Sports Scope coming on. He'll be on about 8:30, and we got a special guest today, Jack, Mike Falvo. He's a wrestling announcer. He does cage matches and stuff like that, but he's also ambassador to the International Wrestling. I keep wanting to say boxing. International Wrestling Professional Hall of Fame. It's a new Hall of Fame that just got set up in New York, and they got a big induction ceremony coming up. I'm going to talk to him about all the stuff he does there. So it's going to be a pretty good show. And we got some pretty good guests coming up. So, folks, if you missed any of our shows this week, this is where we kind of recap and add some more commentary to what we've already gone over. So, Jack, the first story I want to get to is coming to you from New York, right? The Knicks win 5 in a row, the first time in decades that they've done that. Randall again with 44 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. Now, I don't know if this is crazy or not, Jack, right? Because we've talked about Randall from the beginning. At first, we discussed whether or not he was an all-star. Well, he became an all-star. And now this may sound kind of funny or kind of crazy, but do you think he's in the discussion for MVP if the Knicks make the playoffs?
You know, Mac, that's the first time I heard it mentioned. Randall, probably, anyone for MVP. I don't think so. I was wrong about Julius Randle early in the year. I didn't think he was the type of player who could quite join a big three, let alone be the franchise player. As the season went along, I thought he could be a Chris Bosh player, an outstanding player, but obviously a big step behind LeBron and D-Wade with the Miami Heat, that he needed reinforcements. Then I thought he could be another Amari Stoudemire. Who knows? I mean, Randall loves being the leader of this team. Night in, night out, he's getting it done. But as far as an MVP candidate, we have to be realistic. The Knicks have overachieved. They've done better than anyone expected. But when you look at the standings, they are the 6th seed, which is excellent for the Knicks. Not quite an MVP candidate. I can't see how you could put him ahead of Joel Embiid. Okay, and also Harden when he was healthy in there. But he's had a heck of a year, that's for sure, Julius Randle. He's exceeded all expectations.
Well, I guess it depends on what you consider MVP to be, right? Is it the best player in the league, or is it the player on a team without him wouldn't be where they're at today and is still a great player? I think Randle fills both those categories, Jack.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, except you look at the other teams, and you could always point to one key player. What would the Sixers be without Joel Embiid? I mean, they wouldn't be in the top spot in the East. They would be maybe third, so on. They'd be a couple of pegs down. And look at the Lakers, for example. we'd have a discussion, well, is LeBron really the MVP? Anthony Davis. With those guys out, the Lakers are 5th seed. People don't realize how far down they are, and that shows the value of those players. Julius Randle has been great. He deserves to be in the MVP discussion, Mac.
Right.
I'll agree. Put him in the discussion, but, he's not quite the MVP. Could he be a top 5? Yeah, definitely. But to say that he's the number 1 guy for the MVP this year, I don't think so. But I'll tell you, if the Knicks continue to come on, they get the 4th seed. It gets to be a bit interesting.
Hey, Tom Kelly, thank you for joining us this morning. And let me tell you, Embiid has been unbelievable for you guys this year. I would definitely agree he's in the top 3 candidates for the MVP this year.
Well, let me tell you a step further with Embiid, Mac. Embiid came out the other day and said, I want to be voted the defensive player of the year. And it comes down between Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Rudy Gobert, the Utah Jazz. But Doc Rivers, his coach, has both guys, and he was singing the praises, Doc Rivers, of Ben Simmons. He was hinting kind of Ben Simmons might be Doc Rivers' vote. But Embiid says, look, Ben Simmons has been great. If he gets it, I'm okay with it, even though I think I deserve it. So.
Pickles, thank you for joining us this morning. I agree with you. Randall is playing the basketball of his career. And, it's making the Knicks forget about that trade with Porzingis, right? I mean, Porzingis was the next upcoming star. And if they didn't trade Porzingis, Randall probably wouldn't be here, Jack. And he showed Porzingis up during that last game.
No, well, Dennis Smith was the centerpiece to that deal with the Mavericks, and Dennis Smith didn't work out. And Knicks ultimately traded him to the Detroit Pistons. You kind of wonder what the LA Lakers are thinking. The Lakers had Randall. Could you imagine they held on to Randall all along? And he turned out to be as good a player as he is with the LA Lakers, and he was on him right now. And you throw a big 3 out there, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Julius Randle, in addition to the bench players they have, the Lakers would clearly be the favorite to repeat.
I definitely agree with that. Let's stay in New York with Rangers rookie LaFerriere, right? In the last 15 games, that rookie center is playing like an NHL pro. He left home November 7th, hasn't seen his family since, Jack. And like I said, in the last 5 games, I mean, he's been big in the assists. He's getting that young Ranger team going. They're pretty exciting right now. So a great move picking him up, and probably an even better move of starting that young 19-year-old, Jack. Oh, you're muted your mic, Jack. Yeah.
He was their number 1 overall draft pick. I mean, and it's good to see him come on his rookie year, as opposed to a guy like Jack Hughes, who's been outstanding for the Devils, who had a very slow rookie year, who in his second year is really finally putting it together. And that's my theory. You just got to play the guys. Even though they're young, they might take some lumps. Sometimes they need an enforcer, someone just to protect them. Because when you have a young kid, the veterans on the other team are going to try to unsettle them, because they're in awe, they're playing in the NHL no matter how good they are. So you kind of need players to have their back like a veteran presence. But the Rangers are a young team. The Rangers are 1 year younger in average age than any other team in the NHL. And that's pretty impressive looking, forward. And the Rangers are battling for playoff spot right now. They're a few points, behind the Bruins there. The Flyers are falling off the pace. But, hockey's a lot of fun to watch this final playoff push.
I agree, Jack. I think it's going to be a heck of a playoffs no matter who gets in there from the East, because they're all very, very good teams. In Brooklyn, Durant comes back, right, and he's playing. Kyrie played too, was kind of held in check, but Durant had a good game. They had a huge deficit. They come back with a big comeback and make it a big win. Durant has 25 points. More importantly, Joe Harris has 26, and Landry Shamet has 20 points off the bench. So the Nets had a good team, as we discussed before, Jack, before these players came here. They were a solid team. If they can get Durant back, which to me, he's still one of the better players in the league easily.
Durant is back.
Well, I mean, totally back. I mean, playing every day and into the playoffs healthy. If he can be healthy, and, you got Kyrie, you got the big three. If they're all healthy, they should, and this is big should, underline should, make it to the championship. Chemistry is still the only thing I'm worried about.
Well, that's what I said. Now, the chemistry doesn't bother me if everyone's healthy because they've already showed they can play well together. James Harden has sacrificed his game. He's willing to be the point guard. He's willing to put his ego on the shelf. Durant seems to be getting along well with Kyrie, which is unusual for a superstar of Durant's. He's someone of Durant's caliber. Normally, they want to be the guy, the main guy. He's willing to blend in with the other two. Joe Harris has been the silent guy. He's the three-point assassin on that team. He's the guy with the best, catch and shoot shot, on the team. And all due respect to James Harden, who creates things more.
Yeah.
And we hear about LaMarcus Aldridge retiring. But as I said yesterday, DeAndre Jordan was doing just fine before Aldridge joined the Nets. So that's not as bad a loss for the net roster as we think. But we wish, LaMarcus Aldridge well, a 7-time All-Star, who's had really a heck of an NBA career. And then Nets will be fine. If the Nets are all healthy, like you say, Mac, with their big three, all cylinders going, they're going to come out of the East. They'll beat the Sixers. If they don't have their big three, I go with the Sixers. It's that plain and simple.
Yeah, and good morning to Snowflake, too. Glad to have you back today, my friend. Let's get in a little bit. I want to get into a little bit about, and we're going to cover this with Robert, too, somewhat. The black players coming into Major League Baseball, and I'll get Robert's opinion on this, too. Back 20 years ago, Jack, it was 20%. All right, it is now down to 7.6%. It's dropped off 13 points. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, Jack. One, Major League Baseball does not promote baseball to the kids anymore. For some reason, they want to get to the adults and they schedule games later. They're pulling the minor leagues out. They don't go into the neighborhoods and help promote baseball like they should, like the NBA does and the NFL does. I mean, if you look at the NBA and NFL, they'll set up different kind of competitions, whether it be flag football in the NFL or it would be, a 3-on-3 in the NBA, and they appeal to the younger generation. They're all up in the neighborhoods. Major League Baseball, for some reason, I don't understand it, Jack. I don't understand it at all. They don't go into the neighborhoods, help rebuild ballparks like they should, have camps like the other sports do. What is wrong with them?
Mac, you're 100% correct. You got to keep this in mind. Baseball is harder to play, not the game itself, but harder to organize a game than any other thing. Basketball with kids, you need one basketball. You could have a few kids go to the park. They can play. They can improve their skills. You improve through playing. You gain a love and desire the game through playing. You could do it with one football. You could get 4 kids, 2-on-2, 2-hand touch. You could get a few other kids. A soccer ball the same way. Baseball, you need a bunch of gloves. You can't just really play 4 or 5 kids unless you're going to play stickball, and stickballs went out of style completely. And it's up to the major leagues, things like the youth service leagues, organized games. You just don't see that much. They're really not quite pushing the sport. And certain areas that are economically deprived, where kids would love the opportunity to play baseball, they don't. And I'm going to tell you something. You take the greatest athletes in any sport, they like playing secondary sports. They would love baseball on the side for relaxation. They would have a real love of the game. And that's why you even see our famous athletes today. What do they turn to for recreation? Golf. And if our great athletes today can be great golfers of the caliber of Tiger Woods, they might quit their sport and be full-time golfers. But you're right, Major League Baseball just isn't doing it enough for the inner cities. I mean, not nearly enough. If anything, they've fallen backwards in that regard. And the numbers, that you just mentioned don't lie.
I mean, you think about it, Jack, right? And we're going to have a guest on this week talking a little bit about this. The minor leagues. I mean, the minor leagues is where you can have families go, watch these young kids coming up through the minor league system. Some may be future stars. You can actually interact with the players like you used to be able to do in the old Major League Baseball league, where you would be able to get, autographs and maybe even talk to these guys. They might even ride home on a trolley with you. Today, they're so above that. And the minor league system, which has been restricted by Major League Baseball, they've cut a bunch of teams out of their league because of the cost. But the cost that they're saving is going to cost them in the future, because if I can't bring my son or my grandson to watch a minor league game because that's the biggest thing in the state or that area, and I can't go there anymore, how is my son or grandson going to become acclimated to baseball? Because he sure can't stay up to 7 at night to watch a game or 9 at night to watch a game, Jack.
Mac, you mentioned minor league baseball. Any of our listeners, if you haven't gone to a minor league game, go. It's a thing of beauty. I mean, I even went to a game before the pandemic, the Long Island Ducks of the Independent League. Wally Backman's their manager. Lee Mazzilli's son was playing, in that game, second base. And you see so many guys, and some of them are former major leaguers. They're playing for love of the game. They're still playing to hold on to their dream. It might be a long shot, 1 in 100, but they want to hold on to their dream. Speaking of that, there was a story, Sean Kazmir of the Atlanta Braves. He played his first big league game since 2008.
Yeah.
You heard me right. 2008. He hit into a double play, but he was still ecstatic. Just the idea he stepped foot, on a major league diamond. But you're right, the small towns, Mac, who don't have a major league team anywhere within sight that people could travel to, they cherish their minor league baseball. I mean, it means so much to them, but you wonder what the big teams are doing, what Major League Baseball's doing to help out those minor league facilities.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, Jack, right? Even if there's a Major League Baseball stadium in your area, and I'm not talking about like in Nebraska and Oklahoma and stuff like that, where there is no Major League Baseball in some states. But even if you have, say you live next to Boston or New York, say you're 2 hours away, to bring your kid there is going to cost you, I don't know, a few $100s. And if you want to bring a few of your family there, it's going to cost you, $500, $600, $700 to go there. So that's your vacation for the year if you're like I am, which is not very rich. So that minor league baseball team in that area is a nice day out where you can go out that day. You can bring your family with you. You can enjoy the amusement park that's next to it. Sometimes you can go to have their family days where they actually have, the mascots there. You're there talking to the players. You might even get on the field. I mean, this is what makes it personal. And this is what is not there in Major League Baseball anymore. You can't get to the players. You can't talk to the players like you used to be able to. So I mean, to take this away, even when there's a park within 2 hours of you, to me is idiotic. I don't know who's in charge, but they got to start thinking about what they want to happen to their sport.
Mac, it's funny you mentioned the intimacy of minor league baseball and it being a great day out. If someone hasn't been to a Brooklyn Cyclone game, go. They make it very intimate. They have kids' days. They even had bring your dog to the game day.
Yeah.
Where you could walk around the whole field with your dog. And I had to yank my dog gently to move because I think he was thinking of taking a dump on the third base line, when we were walking by the dugout. but the intimacy with the players in that situation. And for kids, it doesn't matter that much whether it's a major or minor league player. They see a player with a uniform interacting with them, and it's a big thing. It's a lot of fun. And what goes on between innings, how they make it entertaining. And the Long Island Duck game I just mentioned, my buddy got the tickets and he said, no, I'm treating you. And we sat right on top of the third base dugout. Big spend. It was $14 a seat.
I know.
$14 a seat. And even the hot dogs are cheaper. And the parking was free.
Right.
I didn't have to spend anything for the parking. So you could get the season ticket plan for a minor league game. And it's not going to be exorbitant, like the major leagues. And to hear what's going on in Major League Baseball, if anything, they're cutting back on expenses in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
The minor leagues are suffering. And when the minor leagues and Major League Baseball suffer, what about all the programs that go on in baseball normally? Okay.
And there's something to say about it. We have one in our Hartford area. It's a minor league team, and they contribute to the businesses there, right? They built this huge park. It's a beautiful park out here in Hartford that they built, and it's a Dunkin' Donut Field. It's what it's called. Dunkin' Donuts, of course, sponsors it. But the businesses, the hotels, the area where all these, I think it holds 10 to 20,000 people, Jack. I think so. I could be. I'm not exactly sure the count.
Are
But
you sure that many people? Because minor league ballparks.
it's a big park, Jack.
Usually hold in the vicinity of 7,000.
Yeah, it's a very big park. So I'm just guessing. All right. So anyway, but the businesses there are flourishing because of that. They also have a lot of things to do with the community there, where kids do come in and they do support charities out of that thing too. So I mean, it's not just about baseball. It is. I mean, mainly about baseball, but it gets the businesses in the area a boost. It gives the community, the charities a boost. It relates to the kids. They go out of their way to market their team and that place. And when you don't have that, when they cancel that, for instance, if say you had a minor league team in Salt Lake City, right? You had a minor league team. You have business around there while it's going on. The people coming out of that stadium, the people following that other team may stay in a hotel, go out to grab a bite to eat, go see the sights. It takes away that too, Jack. So when you fold up a minor league team, you're not just folding a team, you're folding a community. And I tell you right now, I think if Major League Baseball don't get it together, they're not going to be second anymore in the Big Four. They're going to be number 4 in the next 10 years.
Mac, you take a small town in the Midwest. They can't go to a Broadway show. I mean, I live in New York. I can go to a Broadway show. You could take away a couple of sports franchises. I'll have others. I'll have a ton of entertainment to go to. But in these small towns, that's the main source of entertainment, like their minor league team. They look so forward to it. It's a big thing. I mean, looking at it from the outside, coming from a big city, we don't feel the impact these people feel in the smaller towns. And they feel it, not just economically, but spiritually, their team taken away. And it's so important to them.
It sure is. And good morning to Carlos. Glad you joined us, Carlos. We love having you aboard. So that by itself, I think, is contributing to a lot of young athletes, not just black. I think a lot of young athletes are choosing other sports to get into. And there's another reason for that, Jack, right? If you go to the minor leagues, you have to wait your turn to get to the major leagues because of contracts, because of the other players up there that have signed contracts. If you get drafted by an NFL or NBA team, or as we have just seen in the NHL, you might be playing that next year or the year after.
Well, college is the minor leagues for NFL players. I mean, they're really that's the audition for the NFL, how they perform in college and whether they're good enough to be drafted or given a serious look as a free agent if they weren't drafted by an NFL team. Same thing with basketball. I know there's the G League and there are other leagues involved, but they have to, there's nothing like the minor leagues in baseball because you're working your way up from certain levels, the Penn League, AA, AAA, the whole bit. And it's very stat oriented, as well. I mean, even though they invite guys to training camp, basically there's a progression over there.
Yeah, I mean, here we go, Snowflake again, and talking about the minor leagues.
Well, that's why I said capacity 6,803. I said about 7,000.
Yeah,
I don't mean 7,000 to be exact. See?
Yeah, and Carlos says college is a terrible system for all sports. I kind of disagree with that 100%, Carlos. I think college has to is the minor league system for football and basketball, and I'll tell you, it's a lot better than a G League or going through the
athletes are gaining their revenge on the colleges. For years, the colleges used the athletes.
Right.
For years, the athletes made them a ton of money. Now the great athletes use the colleges, especially the NBA. The basketball players, they'll play 1 year and then off to the NBA.
Yeah, I agree.
They use the colleges. I mean, it's not the healthiest system. Great college basketball players don't play for 4 years anymore. Great college basketball players don't play for 3 years anymore. You're lucky to get 2 years out of them.
Okay, Jack. So backstage, we have Robert Butler, host of SportsScope, a great site over there. He does a great job. And we're going to talk to him about one of the topics we've been discussing and a bunch more. And since you brought us to the NCAA and Carlos brought us to college basketball and a terrible system that he thinks it is, let's bring him on and let's talk a little bit about the NCAA rule change that came up. Let's see. Let's get him in. Come on, Robert. There you go.
Boy, zoom me in, zoom me out.
I'll tell you, that was quick.
Hey,
I tell you, I'm a button pusher from way back, Robert. So there you go.
Man,
so anyway,
funny.
Robert, glad you could join us again this Sunday. Love having you on. We were just talking about, and not exactly what we're going to talk about now, but the NCAA, Carlos feels that it's a terrible system for that to be the minors. I disagree. Jack brought up that the NBA and even the NFL, of course, they benefit from these players coming out ready to almost play their first year. Some yes, some no. But the NCAA, as Jack has mentioned, has been using players' likenesses and images for a long time. And when you transferred, you'd had to wait a year to play on that team. And you would be on a team, say Robert, you're on Ohio State, right? You're a good quarterback, you're solid, you're almost good as a first stringer, but you're not going to get a chance to play. Now, the NCAA changed the rule that when you transfer to another school once, not twice, but once, you can start that year. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's a great idea, guys. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. Ohio State had Joe Burrow, had JT Barrett as a starter for 2 years. So a lot of time these guys, these coaches get these narratives that this guy can play and this guy can't. And these players develop at a different speed and pace. You look at guys like Alvin Kamara used to play for Alabama, the star at the Saints. And, Alabama's got 4 or 5 deep running backs, and Tennessee end up getting Alvin Kamara. He had to sit out a year. So now you're getting something where you have it much quicker. It benefits the smaller schools that are not as lucrative, and it creates more competition. Look at teams like Arkansas, Auburn. Here in Tennessee, we get the overflood of players from those other teams, and you get to see those great players showcase themselves, and now you're going to be able to capitalize on your likeness. We were talking about a few weeks ago, Jack, where you would like to see players stay in college for 3 years. Well, the ability to transfer now and capitalize on your own likeness. You know what? Maybe Adam Silver, I talked about that on my show, that maybe he should look into something like that, go back and talk to the NBA Players Association and say, hey, why don't we go back to the 3-year, goes to something like a 3-year deal? You know, it's going to take years for the marketing to catch up in the G League. So I love both ideas. It was a big topic on my show this past week. I'm stoked. Man, I still got 4 years of eligibility, man. 40-something years old. Yeah, I get my training on.
Well, I think this should never have been a rule. If you're able to transfer, the team is willing to let you transfer the school, and the other school's willing to pick you up. Who's the NCAA to say you can't play for a year? Again, this is one of the stupid NCAA rules. And they finally did cave in to the likeness, which I think they should have. They opened up a whole can of worms when they started doing that. Why would you use amateur athletes supposedly to promote your business off the teams like you used to? I never understood that, Robert.
Oh yeah, you know, there was a major lawsuit. Was it 10 years ago now that the NCAA football games were using players' likeness, and those players not getting compensated. Of course, they won that in a court case. They got a little bit of money, class action lawsuit and everything. So I'm like you, man. I just think that it was a long time coming. It should have been like this for a while now.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. So, Robert, the Mets organization under scrutiny again, right? For some reason, the Mets can't get out of their own way. And of course, some of these suits or allegations are from the Wilpon area, but it caused owner Cohen to hire an investment firm to investigate workplace conduct, with a lot of women coming out and saying that they were either, harassed or comments were made. Here we go again. I mean, listen, what does it take for a head of the department to understand? I mean, I heard about this back in the 90s. We were trained on this back in the 90s when I was at a federal building about harassment. What's going on over there?
I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe Steve Cohen should just fire everybody in the building. Janitor, I know you've been here 20 years, ain't got nothing to do with nothing, but man, I got to let you go so I won't get criticized for anything for the regime. It's like in politics, you see a new staff come in and then they just do away with the old. So I don't know. It just seems like that's something that possibly needs to be done. You hate to see anybody lose their job. People that are innocent, but man, I mean, what's the odds of a general manager? And when I was looking the research for this, I mean, what kind of environment do you got going on up there in the Mets? It kind of reminds me of the Washington situation for the football team.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. So I don't know when they're going to get the pitcher. I mean, you're talking not only, I mean, you sit down people, you say, listen, this is how it is. If you mess up, I have them sign a paper. If you mess up, you're fired. I mean, to me, it's that simple. There's no reason why you can't control yourself in the workplace. I mean, I don't get it. Like I said, back in the 90s, I think it was 1993 or 94, somewhere around there, when I started my job, that was a hot topic of a conversation back then. I don't get it at all, especially the head of your marketing department. That's ridiculous.
I know, man. That's every HR thing I ever went to, I've worked security in federal buildings, state buildings. I even applied for a casino. Those HR training, they basically read you the riot act. One of the videos says you can't even look at a woman a certain way with the air quote bedroom eyes.
Yeah,
I don't even look at somebody the wrong way.
No, it's very crazy out there right now. One of the rules we had to do was we couldn't even send the woman flowers because that.
Oh no!
Yeah, I mean that's how.
I know it bummed you out, Mac, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It did bum me out. So anyway, Jack is being very silent, which I'm.
No, I got to tell you. Can you guys
delay.
hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's a
kid
delay
you
here. I don't know.
not.
It may be my side, guys. I'm not
can't
sure.
hear a thing
No, he was
that
muted. He was muted,
Rob
Robert.
is saying.
Oh, okay.
I can't
Right.
hear a thing. When Rob was talking, I don't know what he was saying. I couldn't hear anything, but obviously everyone else could hear him but me. So I was really silent. I was
Okay.
I figured
he
you
was
was just a
saying
big Met
how
fan. You didn't
brilliant
totally
Jack
disagree
is
with
and
all
how
that.
much he agrees with my viewpoints. I was assuming that, so I figured it's safe for me to just, be conservative, not say anything.
But you can hear me, Jack?
I could hear you. I couldn't hear Rob.
Can you hear him right now?
Hey, Jack, can you hear me?
Talking right now.
Jack.
I guess he can't hear you. I don't know what's going
I
on.
can't hear Rob for the life of me, so I figured let me just, sit back, whatever.
Well, at least out there,
I'm like
pick-
Sam
that's-
Darnold against the Patriot defense 2-3 years ago. Remember he said he had no clue?
yeah, ghosts. He saw ghosts. You're hearing ghosts right now, Jack. Okay, there you go. So Snowflake tells us he can hear all three of us, so it's nothing wrong going out. It might just be coming in.
Yeah.
So you have more than a dozen men and women that were aware of these comments from the Wilpon era too, as I said.
But can I say something in regard to that? Steve Cohn wasn't the owner at the time. And
Right.
Steve Cohn shouldn't be catching the flack for what went on. He should follow up because there shouldn't be an expiration date on these complaints, just because there's a new owner. If the culture's really bad in an organization, it shouldn't just automatically end because there's a new owner. The new owner does have an obligation to look into things, but at the same time, we can't start blaming, Steve Cohn for what went on unless there's some evidence him as a minority owner was involved in any way, and there's no evidence of that. But, Steve Cohn hired a firm, give them a chance to look into it. And the more people that are coming out with complaints now, it gives them a chance to look into it. And it's something that has to be taken seriously. And right now, Steve Cohn should be given the benefit of the doubt that he is taking it seriously. And by hiring that firm, that sends out a message. And let's see what comes out of it.
I agree with everything you said
Yeah.
there, Jack. I agree with everything you said. So me and Jack were talking about 20 years ago, the African American baseball players percentage was at 20. 20 years later, it's down to 7.6%. And what me and Jack started talking about, there's a lot more points I want to get to with you about it. But Major League Baseball, for some unknown reason, Robert, I've never understood it. I know it's more a locally promoted product than a lot of sports, but they're losing a lot of young fans. Where football has camps in these areas, basketball, NBA brings 3-on-3 or some camps or some competition to these areas where the kids are at, and maybe not in the best areas. Major League Baseball really doesn't do anything. I mean, I've seen a couple players in baseball build a park, but I've never seen Major League Baseball make a concerted effort to go into some area that has maybe a baseball park that's run down or just doesn't have a baseball park and invest in these areas and try to get the younger kids to become fans of Major League Baseball. I don't understand it, Robert.
Yeah. Jimmy Rollins said something about, the inner city kids like himself and myself, for instance. There's not that many ballparks in these inner cities. It's more for a, suburb area. You got more baseball fields. But football, you can play with one other person. Basketball, you can play one-on-one. So I do think that, this has been brought up years ago. And that the fact that the game does not, like you just said earlier, it does not trend nationally. A lot of the national sports talk shows do not talk about baseball during the season at any length because it is a regional sport. It's not, I sound like a broken record. The other games have sped up in tempo and the other leagues. Now, baseball, I was telling my dad just the other day that I've noticed that baseball has sped up a little bit. It has sped up this year more than I've noticed over the past 2 years. I don't have any data. I'm just saying by my eyes, the pitchers aren't taking forever to throw the ball. The game has sped up. But, yeah, you got to get more ball fields in inner cities, maybe some indoor baseball, something like that. That was an issue for me growing up. I like baseball, but it was never my number one love. Basketball to play because you could just pick up a ball and play one-on-one. So it is just but, you know, the great catch was made by a guy named Mookie Betts last night. He's out of my hometown. But,
Right.
you know, I think that we should speed up the game, eliminate shifting, put the pitch clock in there. Let players celebrate. Let players celebrate more. I like the flash and everything. Jimmy Rollins talked about that.
Yeah, but you know, Robert, that's all well and good. But if you're not making a connection with the young fans, you may be making a connection with the fans today if you do all those things. But if you're not going out there and getting the younger kids, which most sports do,
Yeah.
and you're going to rely on me and you, you know, we're not going to be here forever. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 20 years that baseball becomes number 3 or number 4, not number 2 anymore. It might be number 3 already. I don't know. But I think that the ratings have shown that baseball has dropped off just like some of the other sports. And in reaching out to neighborhoods, me and Jack talked about this too, the minor league system. They've cut minor league teams from their minor league system. And when you live out in the boondocks and you don't have Major League Baseball, and even if you do, the price to go into Major League Baseball is ridiculous, right? So
Yeah.
these minor league teams are a place where you can bring your family, your whole family. You can have a great day. You can meet the players. You can eat for almost nothing. You can park for free, and your kids will get to see the game of baseball and meet the players. And Major League Baseball has been withdrawing funds instead of expanding, Robert.
Well, I mean, that's a question for the ownership and Rob Manfred. I don't know why they do that. I think that they should reverse it, go into more of these inner cities, like you said, and continue to build this game. In my book, it's number 3, Mac. I mean, it's behind the
What
NBA.
they could do, guys. LeBron James just became a minority owner of the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Maybe has 2% of the team. Magic Johnson's a minority owner of the Dodgers. Rob Manfred, the commissioner, should call those guys into the office when they're available and say, what can we do to build up baseball in the inner cities, even though LeBron at Boston seems to be an odd fit. You know, Cleveland would have been perfect, you know, Miami or whatever. But utilize those guys, okay? With the young African-American kids, you know, maybe Nike could supply thousands of gloves, baseball gloves, you know, because in baseball, I mean, it's hard to play a game. A lot of kids don't own gloves. You don't own a glove, you can't play, okay? And then all you need, like I said before, is one basketball amongst 10 kids. That's all you need, and the 10 kids could play. Baseball, you need 10 gloves. I mean, at least 5 and 5 if you're going to play that way. A lot of poor kids don't own those gloves because they do cost a bit.
Yeah, and I was one of those poor kids. I finally got into baseball when I was like 12 or 13, but it's one of them things that baseball's ignored. See, baseball makes enough money to be complacent.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's part of the problem. Also, I want to say this, guys. Baseball, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, they do not utilize the deadest month of the sports calendar, the month of July. If it was up to me, the baseball regular season would end July the 31st. You would have pennant races when you're not competing with basketball or football. The NBA Finals is they're over right with in June. And you got all these kids you can get that market share, baseball, and get some more kids involved when you have that real estate. Football is so far king now. Look at Kyler Murray turned down baseball. Kyler Murray could have played baseball. Russell Wilson could have played baseball. But, with the minor league system and everything, and it is good as football has marketed itself, and the rise in salaries in the NFL, I mean, they're catching baseball, guys.
Yeah, I agree with everything.
That guaranteed money.
I agree with everything you said there, Robert. And I think there's something to be said about being able to get to the pros faster too, right? In the NBA, if you're a very good player, you get drafted. You're playing. If you're really good, you're playing the first year, if not the second. In football, if you're a very good college football player and you're drafted high, you're expected to play within the first 2 years significantly. But baseball, if you come out of college in baseball or you're scooped up by a minor league team, you could spend your whole career there. And if you are good, they're going to keep you down because of the contract and because of the contract they are paying their team right now. So, I mean, it's a longer time in the most, I'd say 99% of the cases, it takes a lot longer to get to the Major League Baseball level than it does in the other sports.
Right. Everything in baseball needs to be accelerated. Everything. The speed of the game, the speed of bringing players up, everything. And you know what? They're slowly coming into that. Kind of like the feed today.
Oh, Lord.
Man. I don't know what it is. You know how the internet, guys, we can't predict this internet. I mean,
listen, Robert, that's the problem doing live, man, instead of tape. But that's how I love doing it. I wouldn't trade doing live to tape any day because it makes it a lot more interesting.
Give me live or give me deaf. What Patrick
I'm on my backup system right now. My internet thing went off. I'm on my backup system.
So anyway, I really believe that baseball, again, as we said, even though basketball really is a regional a sport too.
Yeah.
I really don't care about the Utah Jazz. I mean, I'll watch them if they're on because I'm interested, like I would watch the Dodgers.
Right.
But I'm not going to go out of my way to watch the Utah Jazz. NFL is very smart. The way they did it a long time ago, they got a union that works with them, which is very important too, because you can't do anything without the union in basketball and especially in baseball. I don't know, Robert. I think it's kind of sad because I'll give you an example. In my town right here, we had 9 baseball fields, 9, and this is a small town I'm from.
Yeah,
and right now only 2 of them are being utilized. That's how far it's dropped off, and that 9 fields were busy all the time, every day. That's how far baseball has dropped since I was.
And they've got the strongest union. That may be something with it, too. It's the strongest union in baseball. I know everybody likes unions, but maybe union can slow things down.
Speaking of that, baseball fields, the Field of Dreams field in Iowa, isn't there supposed to be a game this year? Is it this year or next year?
The Field of Dreams?
Yeah, there's supposed to be a major league game held there. No one's talked about it.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I don't know when. That's something I'll look up after the program.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a game there this year. There's Major League Baseball going to the movies instead of going to the neighborhoods. But
yeah, I know.
We'll see what happens. Me and Jack we got in a debate on Saturday, Robert.
Yeah.
About Aaron Rodgers. Jack's man crush he has on Aaron Rodgers that comes through every show.
A lot of these sports guys do.
He was kind of saying that Aaron Rodgers shouldn't be allowed, or they should be discouraged, I should say, to make it more fair. The Packers should discourage him from hosting Jeopardy. My thoughts were, and because he says that Aaron Rodgers should be totally enveloped in the game and the game plan and, practice. If he can't miss practice and he shouldn't have, something that's, making his mind go anywhere else but football during the season. I said, listen, there's people that played 2 sports at the same time. There are people that in their contracts, it's actually written that they can't ride motorcycles because they could get hurt. But You're not going to get hurt hosting Jeopardy. The shows are taped. He's done for now. They got, I think, Buck is the new guest co-host now that's going to be doing it. What do you think about that? Do you think that Aaron Rodgers hosting a game show, even during the season, you think there's any problem with that?
Well, I mean, during the season, yeah, that'd be crazy. But, I mean, it's April the 18th, guys. I mean, we're not even in the draft. Players are talking about not going to mini camps or anything like that. And I think, and someone brought this up, I want to say, it might have been Colin Cowherd, might have been somebody else, that the way that the Packers went out and drafted this quarterback, Jordan forgot his name now. Jordan
Love.
Jordan Love, yeah. Oh, so you hear me? Good deal. Jordan Love, that Rodgers is kind of doing his own thing, you know, and he's not wanting to renegotiate his contract, restructure his contract. So he's got this big grudge against the Packers and chip on his shoulder. I don't know why they don't talk about possibly working out some kind of trade if it's that bad, because they're not going to be able to build up their team. And you know what? He can make $10 to $15 million a year extra doing that. And Colin mentioned maybe he should restructure his contract if they say, okay, we'll give you the Jeopardy thing. Can you restructure your contract so we get some more players in here and actually try to win another Super Bowl during your era? But I'm totally okay with it, especially if it's done in the offseason. And plus, I hear on other shows that are non-sports shows that the guy's great. He's really good at it.
Well, I'll tell you, Aaron Rodgers, have all leverage with the Packers. All he has to do is tell the Packers, I don't like the way I've been treated. I'm going to be retiring. And then they'll extend him a couple of more years. They'll give in. They're not going to let him retire because they have absolutely no one there to step in to take his place. Jordan Love isn't ready. He wasn't even second string last year after they drafted him. He's got all the leverage, and I think he's going to use it pretty soon. And the Packers, you're going to have to extend him. He's not going to start the season for the Packers without an extension, but the Packers could work out a deal and make him the highest paid quarterback in football if he doesn't do the Jeopardy gig. He has to agree not to do Jeopardy, and then they'll accommodate him contract-wise, you know, with their team.
Yeah, and that's part of that is the reason why they're not actually winning. Think about this. This team made it to the NFC Championship game twice, and he has been a major hit on their salary cap. I mean, this guy, Brady, is $9 million hit on it. Brady's been taking a pay cut from 2009 to 2019.
Because his wife makes more money than he does. He doesn't need the
He
money.
took that cut before he met her. Thank
you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. And let me tell you something. And this is where I go crazy. They're disrespecting Robert Rodgers when he makes over $40 million a year. He wants an extension.
He's not making $40 million a year.
He has the leverage. Yes, he is, Jack. Look it up. He has the extension. He wants an extension. He has leverage. Guess what I would do? I would trade up and get another quarterback if I was the Green Bay Packers. I said, go ahead, Aaron. Refuse to play. Refuse whatever you want. I'll fine you. I'll bring in my new quarterback, and we'll see if the Packers can win or not. Guess what? I really hope that the Green Bay Packers send him a message this year. I really do, because I'm tired of his whining. He's made it to the championship twice in a row. That's 4 teams go to the championship every year. 4 of 32. The Green Bay Packers have been to the championship twice in the last 2 years, and he hasn't been able to get it done. So I'm tired of his excuses. I'm tired of Jack's excuses. If Aaron Rodgers has a problem, pack up your bags and go somewhere else. Thank you.
Right.
Rob, can you believe Mac? If Mac were the GM, can you imagine an owner keeping Mac as GM? He would give up draft choices and sign Sam Darnold to quarterback the Packers and play hardball with Aaron Rodgers and let him go walk. I mean, come on.
Well, guys, you know, I would say this. The 49ers have traded up to the 3 pick. Why didn't they talk to that 12 pick and a couple of defensive players? And they could have had that 3 pick. The Green Bay Packers, they can start over. Aaron Rodgers can go home to Northern California. He went to Cal. That would be a match made in heaven. They would be Super Bowl favorites, and the Packers will have their future. They went through this 10, 15 years ago with Brett Favre. I'm going to retire. No, I feel like playing. No, Brett, just say you don't want to go to training camp. He just don't want to go to training camp, you know?
There you
I
go,
would
Rob.
be tired of getting used like that by these players. These teams are too scared of these guys.
Oh, my God, Robert. I agree, man. I agree.
With the development of young quarterbacks now coming out of college, bust rate is way down from what it used to be.
Yes, it's crazy. So anyway, Robert, I want to thank you for coming again, as you always do, every Sunday. You're a great guest, great information, and have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next week. You take care of yourself and have a great day, Rob.
Okay, guys, have a good show.
Thank you. So there you go, Jack. Robert Butler, commentator, guest of Sports Scope, always has a lot of great information. What we're going to do, folks, we're going to take our quick break. We'll be back on the other side with our special guest, a person that not only has announced wrestling in the past, and he's a member of a few wrestling organizations, but he's ambassador to the new International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. And we're going to have him on right after these messages. So, folks, please stay with us, and we'll be right back after this.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer Jack Hirsch. And we're having a great show for you today, folks. We just had Robert Butler from Sports Scope on, and a lot of comments from that. And we have a special guest coming up for you in 1 minute here, Jack.
Old school wrestling. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, I know you love old school wrestling, Jack. I know you do, but there is new school, too, that we got to start paying attention to. I mean, we just had WrestleMania.
I'm out of love with new school wrestling. I bumped into, I think it's JBL, a former WWE champion. I was introduced to him at a boxing function. We were on the elevator together. He got right in my face, wanting to be recognized. I didn't recognize him. He was helping me with the boxes in the back for the goodie bags, one-on-one. I was with a former world champion.
Yes,
and
you were.
I didn't even know I had to apologize to him that I was out of the loop.
I hear you. Well, we're going to have Mike Falvo coming up right now, and we're going to talk to him about how he got in wrestling, what he does with the Global Syndicate Wrestling, and of course the Hall of Fame. They got an induction coming up, and we want to get him on and let's talk about it for a little bit. How you doing today, Mike?
Happy Sunday, boys. How are you?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. I mean, we're rolling along. We're glad you agreed to come on. Really excited about having you on today. First, Mike, how'd you get involved in wrestling? I mean, everybody has a story of how they, get into a sport or announcing or carry on further in their career. What got you interested?
Well, my father lied to me. That's how I got interested. Really, I started as a fan. I was 8 years old, and, my father had come home from work one day, and he says, finish your homework. We're going to go get ice cream. Okay. So, myself and my brother, we did what we had to do, and we get in the car and we drive past all the ice cream shops, and he's like, don't worry, I know a place. So we get to the Utica Memorial Auditorium. I'm from Utica, New York. And the WWF was in town. And we went in, saw the show, and I've been in love with it ever since. Unfortunately, God didn't grace me with the physical ability of a Dave Bautista or, any of the big names out there, but he did grace me with a big mouth. So I was able to put that to use and become an announcer.
Excellent. And from what I've read on your bio, you actually announced some cage matches. I mean, you've been involved for years with this. So I came across the Global Syndicate Wrestling, and is this a promotion or is it a syndicate where wrestlers, and some of the names, to be honest with you, I didn't notice because I've really been out of wrestling for years. I'm with Jack. I'm back with the Animal Steel and Chief Straight Strongbow and all those great ones, and of course Hulk Hogan and that group. Mm-hmm. But I kind of haven't kept up with it lately. We just got a wrestling show on Northeast Streaming Sports, so it's kind of bringing me back into it. But what is the Global Syndicate Wrestling all about?
Global Syndicate Wrestling, they're one of the newest independent promotions on the market now, so to speak. They're based out of New Jersey. A lot of young, great independent talent are getting together, and they're putting together this amazing product. You're seeing a very good mix of, I guess you could call it modern day wrestling. A lot of the more aerial, high flying type maneuvers mixed in with a little bit of the old school, mixed in with a little bit of the catch can. And you're seeing some of these young superstars just go head to head. Amazing matches, great production, and I think Global Syndicate Wrestling is going to be one of the top promotions in the next, I would say, couple of years. And they're already well on their way to being one of the top promotions right now. We at our last event, we crowned our first heavyweight champion in the name of Alex Hammerstone. And if you have never seen this young man, get online and watch his matches. He is a brick bleep house. I don't want to curse on your show, but he's amazing physique, amazing talent, charisma through the roof. He's one of those guys you look at and you just say, he is a professional wrestler. No question about it. But we have a great roster, a great team, and it's just going to be, I think it's going to be to the moon for Global Syndicate Wrestling.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, the Raw and the WWE is going to have a little competition. I'm glad to hear that, because the more competition, the better, and it's more entertaining. So you have a new wrestling Hall of Fame that you just opened up recently, if I read it right. I think it was 2019, if I'm correct. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have your first induction. I saw names like Hulk Hogan, Nature Boy, if I'm correct. All these wrestlers. When is the date? When are you going to have that induction?
The induction is going to be held the weekend of August 27th through the 29th. It's going to be here in Albany at the Desmond Hotel, which is a beautiful hotel. If you've never been up this way and you've never seen a beautiful facility, it's going to be a weekend-long celebration of professional wrestling. It's not just going to be, we're going to come in and the guys are going to get plaques and they're going to be sent on their merry way and blah, blah, blah. No, it's going to be the night of August 27th. We're having a full-blown live event. Full card of matches, the Tony Villano Memorial Battle Royal. Tony Villano, who is the we like to call him the founding father of the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. We're having a battle royal. We're having guest ring announcers. We're having legends are going to show up, sign autographs, take pictures, do all that great stuff. It's going to be an amazing night. Yes.
You mentioned the late August. That's when you're going to have their Hall of Fame ceremonies and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm involved in the sport of boxing. I was a past president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. And every year I cover the Hall of Fame festivities in Canastota, New York, not that far from Albany. Okay?
Nope. I'm from Utica. I know that area very well.
Sure. And for the second year in a row, the festivities in Canastota have been moved back to June 2022. They're not even running it, this June. And that's kind of close to the June date. And the reason it got moved back, boxing, because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you so confident that you can, it could be run the wrestling festivities in a normal sense?
Well, we've worked very closely with both New York State Board of Health and also the Albany County Board of Health. And we're monitoring everything very closely. And, from what we're seeing, we are on track to hold the event. We're holding very limited number of tickets for the various events. Like I said, we've worked with both county and state Board of Health. And they've assured us that we should be okay. We're going to make sure we have all COVID protocols in place, mask requirement, hand sanitizing, proper sanitizing of the event, and so on and so on. The most important thing is the health and safety of our guests, and also the health and safety of the wrestlers that attend, that are going to be there to sign autographs. We're going to be respectful of everybody's social distance, especially the wrestlers and the guests. Social distancing will be in place. And like I said, limited availability to certain events will be in place as well. But we're more than confident that we'll be able to have the event and have a successful event.
Do you have any names yet guaranteed, or I shouldn't say guaranteed because nothing's guaranteed, but have you any RSVPs as far as wrestlers coming or people to hand out the plaques? So you have a name or a few guys that are going to hand out the awards to be inducted into the Hall of Fame yet?
Those are all things we're still working on. That's for us to know and you to find out.
All right, cool. I did mention to you off air that we'd love to be part of that. I mean, if we could carry it, if we could interact with any of the people there, we would love that too. Virtually, I would imagine you're going to have different outlets there. Virtually for either interviews or whatever. And we'd love to be part of that with you, Mike. So keep us in mind.
Absolutely. We would love to have you, and we'd love to have your guests, have your listeners and your viewers join us for that weekend. It's going to be a great weekend.
I mean, we'll probably carry it on the network itself, which reaches everywhere video and audio. It's a tremendous network right now that really just started going up too, and then it's been this year, and we're already up to 100,000 combined followers, and on every major outlet, including Global Live TV too. So we're growing too. We're trying to get our teeth sank into the networks of sports networks, and it's been a lot of fun and a lot of work, but it's been very satisfying. Back to announcing. When you did as an announcer, do you still do that today, Mike?
I do. I still do that today. I originally started as a basketball announcer, doing PA announcing for high school basketball. That's originally where my start was. And then as years went on, it just kind of morphed into, like I said, I was always a pro wrestling fan. I actually trained to be a wrestler in the UK. So I trained in the British style of wrestling, which, if you're not familiar, it's much more technical, much more, I guess if you want to call it, much more Stu Hart style wrestling than anything. But I was in the service at the time, so I was getting orders, moving all over the world, and it was really hard for me to stick in a place where I could really grow my wrestling career. So I eventually stuck with announcing, but I do basketball, professional basketball here in Albany. I was the announcer for the Albany Empire of the old Arena Football League that just recently folded. Right. We have new teams coming here to Albany. I do college basketball, college football, mixed martial arts that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. I think it's important to be able to know how to call all of these events. Boxing as well. I love calling boxing matches, by the way.
That's excellent. What is your favorite sport? I mean, it's got to be wrestling to announce, but what part of it? I mean, it said you did cage matches and all that. Is that the most exciting? It's almost like you're not only going against the wrestler, of course, but the cage itself. I mean, would you rather announce a tag team, a championship, or a cage match? Which one of those three would be your favorite?
All three. Can I pick all three? Is there a D? All of the above?
No. It has to be.
Oh
no.
Man, you have to make me pick. I love announcing all of them, but pro wrestling is just so much fun. I mean, what other business can you look at where you look and you're, as an announcer, you try to be serious, you try to be professional, coming down the aisle, and you look and there's a 6 foot 5 inch lizard coming down the aisle.
Right.
And you have to be as serious as possible without cracking up. I mean, it's great. The history behind professional wrestling is so rich and it's so unique. But when you think about it, the ridiculousness of professional wrestling is it's great. Yeah. Like I said, what other business can you call somebody coming down the aisle and it's a 6 foot 5 inch lizard?
I'm gonna tell you, I got married the night before WrestleMania 1, and all I have on my wedding video is all the guests being asked who they think's going to win the match the next day, with Hulk Hogan, Mr. T against Roddy Piper, and on and on. And so WrestleMania kind of became part of our culture the way the Super Bowl is.
Yeah. And that's something else that's absolutely amazing. You look at the period in the mid to late 1980s when professional wrestling really shot through pop culture and became very mainstream, and it really hasn't left. I mean, it's gone on its roller coaster rides, but I mean, it's a part of America, and that's one of the great things that I love about it.
Well, what I like about modern wrestling compared to old school, even before Hulk Hogan, around that time, you always knew who was going to win the match. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the olden days, they rarely had an upset. Rarely. Now it's so much more unpredictable. You could see, the upset now and then.
No, that's 100% correct. I think the days of now they call them enhancement talent are gone. At least at the WWE level, they're gone. You're not going to see guys like, Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling Steve Jones, or wrestling, just somebody to help get them over. But now you see guys like Daniel Bryan is a great example. Smaller guy, somebody that you wouldn't necessarily peg as a professional wrestler, multi-time champion. Whereas, 15, 20 years ago, that would be unheard of, because you would see the championship on a Hulk Hogan, on a Randy Savage, on a Diesel, Kevin Nash, just a big, larger than Ultimate Warrior, just these big, larger than life characters. But now you have stars like Daniel Bryan, who are smaller, more technical, who are showing that, hey, you don't need to be this big hulking bodybuilder type to have a championship. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, but don't you think it's the gimmick that they could think of that sends a wrestler into the big con? Take The Rock, for example. He was obscure when he came up. He was just one of the members of the Nation of Domination. We knew who he was, but all of a sudden he had his standard line. You know what The Rock has cooking? And that line took off. That was the equivalent of Michael Buffer's "Let's Get Ready to Rumble." Okay, a Stone Cold, because Stone Cold says so, and people pick up on that line, and that's what I think it is. You latch onto something, and it's not just the wrestling ability. I think it's a little more than that.
Well, no, it is. You have to put something in the ring that resonates with the audience, and that's what you saw with The Rock and guys like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Their characters and how they portrayed themselves in the ring resonated with the audience. You had The Rock, who was brash, he was cocky, he was, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, jabroni, whatever. Then you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was the complete opposite. Blue collar, everybody at some point in their life wants to kick their boss's ass, and he got to do it on a weekly basis. These are things that resonated with the audience. And, I bring it back to Daniel Bryan once again. He was the consummate underdog. He would go in the ring against guys like Triple H, again, big hulking guy. And he was the underdog. He was the guy you wouldn't expect to win a fight, but he goes out and he wins. And he resonated with the fans and the yes, yes, yes. And that is what helped propel him to superstardom.
Well, Mike, there is something that maybe took me away from wrestling for a while, and it has done so in boxing too, and that's the pay-per-view. I mean, to me, when I originally watched wrestling, or even into the Hulk days, for the most part, pay-per-view wasn't, the place where you watched these. Where you, that's okay. Where you watched the wrestling was on normal networks, if you want to call it that. You went to Fox or NBC or CBS or one of those stations, and the wrestling grew from that. And just like boxing did, they kind of went to pay-per-view. And are you going to pay $75 to watch something that you might want to watch, but you're not going to watch it because it costs that? What's going on in the regular sponsors? Why aren't the regular sponsors footing the bill like they used to? I know PPV makes a lot of money, but a lot of money is made through sponsorship also, like the NFL. So what do you think's going on there?
Well, that's a little above my pay grade as an announcer. What I think you're seeing is that some of these companies may not need these big name sponsors to help put an event on the air, because now you have so many different avenues to broadcast. You have streaming service like this one right here, like what we're on right now. You have so many different streaming services, so many different options. There's Fight TV, there's Independent Wrestling Television Channel. But not only that, a lot of folks are utilizing services like Facebook. I can't tell you how many companies I have seen that have aired events, and this is at the independent level, that will air events over Facebook, and they figure out ways to do the camera switching, whatever, but there are just so many different ways to get the product out there that, You may not necessarily need a company like I've seen Snickers candy bars in the past have sponsored WrestleManias and so on. But it's just
That's great, good.
But there are so many different options out there that a lot of companies may not necessarily need these big name sponsors. I mean, they may latch on to them as an advertising opportunity, but as far as sponsorship and fronting money to be able to broadcast, you don't necessarily need that anymore.
Yeah, this is hard to believe, but when I was a kid, I remember calling up WOR Channel 9 because wrestling didn't come on the time I thought it would come on. And they told me because they couldn't get a sponsor. So it was temporarily off the air. I mean, that's hard to fathom, seeing how big it is today.
Right. And, even at the television level, I'm a news producer by trade. So I know at the television level, everything is driven by sales. Everything is driven by ad sales. And there are a lot of smaller independent companies where you're seeing some of these guys strike deals with local television stations, whether cable stations, even local news stations and what have you, where they're able to put some sort of product on the air, even if it's Saturday night, 2 a.m. And, but there's so many different options for folks to get a product out there. And you don't necessarily have to worry about a company coming out and sponsoring or a company coming out and fronting a ton of money to get the product on the air. Sponsorship definitely helps. Yes. Pardon me, but it's not a necessity in some cases.
So Mike, the guy I felt the worst for in wrestling was always George Animal Steel. He was always winning the match.
Love George.
And always had to stop to eat the turnbuckle. Now, I don't know why they didn't feed him before the match and, whatever. I just never understood that. So I always felt bad for him. He was winning and then, he decided he got hungry and let the guy get back in the fight. But seriously,
sometimes you get a little peckish and you need something.
He eats the turnbuckle, Mac. Because of my contacts in boxing, I had contacts with the New York State Athletic Commission, and I was able, when my daughters were young, to get them backstage where all the wrestlers were. So the dressing room doors open, and one of my daughters says to me, "Look, The Undertaker, he's drinking coffee. Awesome. Like he's some mythical figure. Like you couldn't believe he actually drinks coffee."
Yeah.
That's fantastic. George, before he passed away, George was a big supporter of the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. He was one of the folks that helped us really get, that really gave us a lot of support. I've had the opportunity to talk with a lot of the folks that are involved in the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and some of the stories that they've told me about George just really make me wish I had the opportunity to just sit down. He's one of those characters where I would love to sit down and just pick his brain.
Yeah.
What was his day job, Mike? I heard a rumor when I was a kid that he was a college professor in Michigan. Is that false, or was any truth to that?
He was, to my understanding, he was a high school teacher. He was a very, very, you wouldn't believe it from what happened in the ring, and I got a story about that here in a second. He was a very well-educated man. He held a master's degree in secondary education from Central Michigan University. He was a high school teacher. He was a high school football coach. As a matter of fact, his name, George Steele, came from a coach that he used to work with that he highly respected. And when he decided to become a pro wrestler, he was coming up with a name and everything. He took this coach's name out of respect for his friend and his colleague.
Yeah.
Now, people don't, and Mac's a big boxing guy too, but people don't realize Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, he went to a wrestling show in Miami and he saw Gorgeous George bragging, and that changed his life. All of a sudden, he had the gimmick, the big mouth, the bragging. And Cassius Clay at the time, later Muhammad Ali, he sat down with Gorgeous George, and Gorgeous George went over the way he won over the crowd, how to act as a villain. And Ali had that as his upbringing. He patterned himself after Gorgeous George. So wrestling had a big influence on Ali. And he got involved later on, not only fighting a wrestler, but in the lead up to the whole thing. And he was involved in WrestleMania 1 also, as one of the referees. And one of the funny sights when he punched Roddy Piper, knocked him out of the ring. And you see Hulk Hogan say, no, I want no party, guy. It was like one of the funnier moments of WrestleMania 1.
Muhammad Ali he's always been a good friend to the pro wrestling industry. He's always loved it. He's even said in many interviews that pro wrestling kind of helped shape who he was. With his flamboyance in the ring. I mean, he was an amazing athlete to begin with, but you add that little extra pinch of pro wrestling in there, and it's just the total package.
So we always have a discussion, Mike, and that, of course, some people say wrestling is fake. I don't go that far. I say it's orchestrated, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they do practice it, but these guys are really getting hit. They're really going out of the ring. They're really jumping up and kicking each other. Maybe it's a little more orchestrated where they don't get hurt, but of course they do. Of course, a couple of people, at least one has died during a wrestling match. So that's how real it can get. But even after all that, to be a wrestler, you got to be a tremendous athlete, and that's for sure.
Oh, there's absolutely no question. And that's the one thing, that's the F word that really drives me nuts. Oh, is wrestling fake? Is wrestling fake? No, it's not. I mean, is it? I mean, it's no secret. Is pro wrestling orchestrated? Is it predetermined? Sure. There are storylines. It's you're in the ring to tell a story. Is it orchestrated? Yes. Is it somewhat choreographed? Sure. That's no secret. I'm not pulling back the curtain or anything like that.
Right.
The injuries and a lot of the shots that you take are very real. Yeah. And, a lot of people ask me, how do you respond to somebody who says it's fake? Do you get angry? I said, no, I don't get angry. I said, you know what? Here's the address of a pro wrestling gym. Come join me for a session. I'll show you how fake it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I don't use that as an opportunity to take cheap shots or anything. I tell them, I say, look, this is how it goes. But not only that, these are the same folks that will sit there and watch an action movie for 2 hours.
But they are entertainers, and some of them don't want to go off script because it becomes inevitable. The good guy becomes the villain eventually. The villain eventually becomes the good guy. In just about all cases, and you hear stories like Bret the Hitman Hart. He didn't want to drop his belt in Canada. And I remember seeing that pay-per-view match with Shawn Michaels that was cut short. And I knew Vince McMahon was cutting it short that moment because Bret Hart didn't want to lose the belt. And then you hear Bob Backlund, after being a good guy, a champion all the years, didn't want to be a rule breaker. Mm-hmm. So some of the guys won't change their ways. Has there ever been a case where a guy was supposed to drop a match and it was understood he dropped the match, but when the match actually took place, he just refused to? I mean, I mentioned one case with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels where Vince McMahon had to step in, and then Bret Hart drilled him in the locker room after.
Oh yeah, that's the infamous Montreal Screwjob. That's a mythical event in pro wrestling. I think that was 97.
I had purchased the pay-per-view event for that, and I knew exactly what was happening the moment Vince McMahon pulled the plug on it. I could tell this was out of the ordinary.
And, there's some discussion surrounding the Montreal Screwjob, whether or not it was, really Vince McMahon screwing over Bret Hart, or if there was a little bit of finagling backstage between Vince, Shawn, and Bret saying, well, why don't we do this and we'll play it like this, and whether or not the whole thing was just a big work. I mean, but that's a whole different discussion for another time.
Sure.
I'm sure there have been instances. One instance that I can think of off the top of my head, Antonio Inoki wrestled a gentleman by the name of Grand Antonio. And if you've never seen it, you should get on YouTube and look up this match. Antonio Inoki, legendary mythical Japanese wrestler, Goes into this match against Gran Antonio, who's just this giant beast of a man, almost like if you remember Giant Haystacks, a sort of a Giant Haystacks looking gentleman. And Gran Antonio didn't want to do business. He was like, I don't respect Antonio Inoki. I'm not gonna participate in this match. And Antonio Inoki effectively, pardon my French, kicked his you-know-what in the ring, legitimately kicked his you-know-what in the ring. After the match, he was beaten and bloodied. I mean, it was one of the moments when wrestling got very real.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there have been instances where somebody was told, oh, you're going to lose the championship. And they say, well, no, I'm not. So I'm just not going to play along.
Yeah, like one of the matches that intrigued me that you mentioned Antonio Inoki, when they had that, I went to Shea Stadium the night he fought Muhammad Ali in Tokyo, and Inoki spent the whole fight on his back. And actually, he hurt Ali pretty badly by kicking him in the legs. Ali had blood clots after. And they went 15 of the most boring rounds ever. Antonio Inoki was scared of Ali. Ali couldn't hit him, and Inoki got the better. It was called a draw. But before that, I saw live Chuck Wepner against Andre the Giant. Years later, I got to spend the whole afternoon with Chuck Wepner at the boxing banquet. He sat right next to me, and I talked to him about the match. And then I realized when I went home, I was no closer to knowing whether that match was on the level or not. Because, they couldn't allow Wepner to knock out Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was too much of a mythical character to actually lose that match. But then again, Wepner's telling me guys like that are just too big. So I don't know, could he have dented Andre had he tried? But all I know, he threw Wepner out of the ring. And in the Rocky movies, they kind of imitated that scene with Thunderbolts. So that was kind of
Thunderlips.
Was that on the level, Andre and Chuck Wepner? I'd love to know the truth behind that.
Oh, there are a lot of so many stories out there that I would love to hear, and it's the one thing that I love about wrestling is the fact that you have these just great and amazing stories, and there's so many of them. It's almost pointless to try to get all of them, but you try to get as many great stories out as you can.
So Mike, before we let you go,
yes,
one question for you. Being an announcer, are you ever in on what's going on? I mean, I know you've got to color commentate, and you've got to be ready for certain things. Are you ever let on any of the plans before it happens, or is it just reaction?
Oh, sure. There are some things as an announcer, both as a ring announcer and a color commentator. One of the things that I like to do is get with, you get with the promoter, and there are things that you need to know. You need to know this match is happening in this order. This is what's going to happen. But I like to ask not just the talent, but the promoter, is there anything else I need to know? Is there anything I need to look for?
Right.
And there have been many times when the promoter has said, oh yeah, this is going to happen, or this person's going to come out, and this, that, and the other. But there have been other times when the promoter has, just basically looked at me and just given me the Iggy, like, don't worry.
Yeah, because I could imagine when they start running up in the ring from the locker room and that, I mean, you might not even see them coming to the. I mean, you hear the fans yelling. I don't know where you're looking from or something, but something may happen that you're not ready for, and I would imagine they would want to give you a cue so you're all over it when it happens, right? I would imagine that would be so.
Right. I mean, if it's a bigger talent that's showing up, they'll say, hey, just so you know, so-and-so is going to be here. We're not going to tell you what they're doing, but they're here. There was, as a matter of fact, there was an event that I worked a couple of years ago here in Johnstown, New York. And we show up to the venue, and we knew Jake the Snake Roberts was going to be there signing autograph, who's a phenomenal guy to begin with. We knew he was going to be there. And he walks in and he's going around shaking everybody's hand, and not too far behind him is Shane Douglas. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is Shane Douglas doing here? And the boss looks at me, he goes, don't worry about it, you'll find out.
Yeah.
I just said, okay.
All right. Okay.
And,
So-
and it all worked out beautifully in the end. I mean, it was a great surprise. The fans were surprised because Shane Douglas, to his credit, spent the entire night in the locker room out of view and just showed up at the end of the night to do, the big last hurrah. And it was great. It was a great surprise.
That's awesome. Mike, again, I want to thank you for coming in and we really enjoyed your visit. I'll be in touch with you as far as your, the induction, and
Sure.
we'll give you as much club as we can. And hopefully we get a little access and we'll kind of trade off. And hopefully it's very successful for you. I'm excited. I'm excited that we got something close by, man. I mean, I really am.
We are excited. We understand with the pandemic still going on, we're trying to be as safe as possible. We want everybody to be healthy and happy and have a great weekend. That is our most important concern. We want everybody to come out. It's going to be August 27th through the 29th, the last weekend in August here in Albany, New York. You can get more information at prowrestlinghall.org. That's our webpage. You can find induction information there, but you can also find us on Facebook, on Twitter. We're on Instagram.
Mike, is it a 2-day function, a 1-day, 2-day function? The Hall of Fame weekend.
It's going to be 3 days. We have the
3
live
days.
event Friday night. We also have a couple other events later on that night. One of them involving the wonderful, our very dear friend Bill Apter is going to be hosting a karaoke party, which is going to be very interesting to say.
I heard there's a big dance too coming up there. Am I right? Or a big dinner?
Yes, that's going to be Saturday night. Saturday during the day, we're going to be hosting, it's like a little mini WrestleCon. We're going to have a number of legends there signing autographs, taking pictures. Your chance to meet and greet, rub elbows with some of your favorite wrestlers. Then later on that night is the induction ceremony itself. And then the following Sunday, we're doing what's called a Breakfast with Champions, where you get to sit down and have breakfast with some of your favorite legends. It's going to be a great weekend all around, a huge celebration of this beautiful business of pro wrestling.
Man, that's awesome. Again, thank you for coming in, Mike. We'll get you on again in the near future, I hope, and we'll talk some more wrestling. I'm getting back into it again. You're helping me do that, Mike.
Good. I'm glad I could help.
I really appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Mike.
Have a
All
great
right, thank you,
Sunday, and thanks for stopping in, Mike. We really
Absolutely.
So there you go, Jack. Mike Falvo with a lot of information, exciting information about the International Wrestling, Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, their induction, their party. I can't wait to get involved in that. And man, I love it so close too, so I can even go up there if I want and check out this new Hall of Fame.
So Matt, you're going to be you'll be on location.
Me, I'll be on location. I won't be on location. Are you kidding me? I'm lucky to get out the door and down the street, Jack. And you know what I mean? But
You'll be on assignment. How's that? I'll handle
well,
it.
we'll definitely.
You'll be on assignment.
Yeah, I'll be on assignment. But we'll definitely get in touch with Mike. Great guy, great knowledge. I'm glad he came in. Folks, we'll be right back after these few messages. We got a little bit more sports to give you, so stick around, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, as we go through our Sunday This Week in Sports review. We just had two great guests on, Jack. We had Robert Butler from Sports Scope, and we just had Mike Falvo on. He's the ambassador to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And he's been doing
Wrestling Hall of Fame.
That's right. I love boxing. I love boxing. I can't get out of my mind. But to the Wrestling Hall of Fame, you are correct, Jack. And listen, it's good to have something else besides the one. I think it's WWE has their boxing Hall of Fame, and we got another. Now we got an
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Wrestling Hall of Fame, and now we got
thinking boxing because we have our big show Thursday, which we have something special planned. We're really going to get into it this Thursday.
Yes, our boxing segment Thursday will be awesome if everything works out right, Jack. I hope it does, because if it does, we're going to give the viewers
Scully won't show up. I'm predicting he ducks out.
Well, I have
my predictions.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, Jack. I don't think Scully's scared of too much in his life, anything. So he might not want confrontation, but it wouldn't be confrontational anyway. It would be all in good fun. I was glad to get Mike on, and we don't talk about wrestling a lot on our program. It is sports entertainment, as they like to say, and again, tremendous athletes doing unbelievable things in a ring or a cage or wherever they decide to wrestle. A little far cry from real wrestling. I guess Bruno Sammartino was probably the closest, I think, Jack, in my opinion anyway, to real wrestling in professional wrestling. I don't know.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that exactly. Real wrestling, whatever. I mean, it's changed the family entertainment. They're performers, they're athletes. We know gymnasts, for example, what they're going to do, what moves they're trying to make, okay?
Right.
And they execute it for points. Wrestlers are the same way. There's a certain sports story that no one is talking about that happened yesterday, Matt.
Give it to us. Give it to us.
Okay. Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks. He tied Gordie Howe's record for the most games played in NHL history. 1,767 games, and no one talks about it. Imagine Cal Ripken in baseball tying a record for the most games played, and no one talks about it. I mean, it's phenomenal. He's going to break Gordie Howe's record, but the funny thing, not so funny, I should say, about Marleau, he's never been on a Stanley Cup winner. He's 41 years old, and that's the one thing he wants. So you kind of wonder, a guy who's playing his career, more games than any other any play in NHL history, yet he doesn't have that elusive championship. And you get some teams where rookies, right off the bat, an 18, 19-year-old kid could be on a Stanley Cup winner for all we know this year. So it's weird the way things work out.
You know, with that, Jack, I mean, you could say he played as many games as Gordie Howe, which is a feat, I would admit. But was he as impactful as Gordie Howe is the question. The only question I would have.
No, not even close. Not even close.
So that's
record match.
Wait a minute. That's like you're being a bench player, you know, all your career on Major League Baseball teams, and I'm not saying it's equivalent, but it's almost. And you've been playing for more years than anybody else, but yet you really haven't made an impact like somebody that has played as many games as you. Great record to tie, but I think to go along with that record, you'd have to say, did he lead in points? Did he lead in assists? I mean, this is the kind of things I think, Jack, if he did that, he would get a lot of more press than he is right now.
Right. Listen, you don't have to be a great player, but he was good enough to hold on to a roster spot to play all those years.
Yes.
And that's what makes it unique. I'm going to tell you something. I mean, and I'll give the example, and I kind of picked this up from Michael Kay. He was talking about Derek Jeter when Derek Jeter moved into 6th place on the all-time base hit list. He said, you know, say what you want about Derek Jeter as a player, but just think of it. In the whole history of Major League Baseball, only 5 players got more base hits than him. So as far as Marlowe goes, in the history of hockey, when he plays one more game, no one would have played more games in the NHL than he did. And that's phenomenal because when you think of all the players who played in the NHL and he's in the one spot, I mean, that makes it very, very special. Talking about records, you know who came very close to tying the Major League record? Jacob deGrom. He struck out 9 men in a row, one short of Tom Seaver, who had 10 Ks in a row once. And Jacob deGrom, he's really humming. I'm going to tell you another funny thing about Jacob deGrom that no one talks about. It's early in the year. The man's hitting over 500. Maybe, you know, put a bat in his hand. They don't have a DH. I mean, I don't know how many at-bats he's had. I mean, when they have interleague play, he gets to DH. But Jacob deGrom's got it going. You know, once in a while you get a pitcher who's a really good hitter otherwise. I mean, years ago, there was this pitcher, Don Wilson. He hit as good as anyone. And I think certain pitchers get athletic enough to play other positions. Listen, Mariano Rivera got hurt shagging fly balls in the outfield. He just landed the wrong way. But he would have been a good outfielder as a relief pitcher. You could have put him in the outfield for just one bat. I always thought to myself, Mariano Rivera, he had a lot of trouble with Big Papi David Ortiz. For some reason, it seemed to me at least, Big Papi had the whammy over Mariano. But the Yankees had a sidearmer. I forgot his name. Big Papi. So I would have loved the scenario where when Big Papi came to the plate, the Yankees moved Mariano to one of the outfield slots for just one batter. And Big Papi wasn't going to hit it to the outfield anyway, but Mariano was a capable outfielder, you know, needed to be. And then Mariano would rush back and pitch to the next guy.
Can they even do that, Jack, in baseball? Once you pull a relief pitcher, isn't that it for him? He can't come back in the game, right?
He can go to another position.
But he can't come back as a relief. Can he come back to the mound?
Yes, he can.
Okay, all right.
You know, but what that would mean, you're taking your outfielder, one of them, out of the game, and he can't come back in.
Right. Okay.
You're really strategizing intensely, but it's so late in the game, and yeah.
Well, I know the great Ron Guidry was put in as pinch runner a couple of times by Billy Martin because of his speed.
Tom Seaver was put in by Gil Hodges as a pinch runner a couple of times.
Very true.
He wasn't that quick, Tom. Terrific.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen.
Smart.
Listen, exactly. And there is something to be said, because a lot of times in the younger leagues, when you start, you're normally playing, your best pitcher normally plays shortstop or third baseman on his off pitching day, and he has to hit. So somewhere between the lower leagues and minor leagues, those pitchers who were good hitters when they were younger end up not being good hitters anymore.
When the Mets played the Yankees one game, the Yankees had the bases loaded. I think it was Francisco Rodriguez pitched in relief for the Mets, and Mariano was up with the bases loaded. And the Yankee dugout loved watching them hit. They were so lively. Mariano actually threw a walk to force in a run. So
yeah. So yeah, very interesting. Great points, Jack. You got any more before I push on to this week?
Yeah. The Cleveland Browns, they signed Giovanni and Clowney.
Yeah.
Now, but the thing about it is, but then they released Sheldon Richardson. So did they bolster their defense? It's like they replaced one guy came in and the other guy came out. So it's kind of like a wash. I don't even think it's a wash. I don't even think it's a wash. I think they lost something because Clowney's always hurt. Harris, that had to be because of the contract. Jeff. And I got to mention boxing. Demetrius Andrade yesterday retained his part of the middleweight title, beating Liam Smith. Good fight, 12-round decision. Smith is a British Welshman. He really had a lot of drive, kept coming to Andrade. Andrade was just too good, too talented, but it was an entertaining fight. Demetrius Andrade is one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound, but what he's lacking is that big fight. Canelo Alvarez is in no rush to fight Demetrius Andrade, believe me.
I agree, and Pickles, I agree with you to a point too. I don't know what it is about Clowney, but it seems everywhere he goes, there's some kind of, I'm not going to say problems, but they're relying on him to be what he was supposed to be, and he never lived up to those expectations for some reason or other. I don't know why, Jack, but some players that are really good in college and maybe are great athletes really don't make it in the pros for injuries or because of attitudes or whatever the problem is. I don't know. So,
and for what it's worth, Bob Corkum, who was the head coach of USA Women's Hockey, he stepped down because he didn't like the COVID protocols that are being used in Canada.
Yeah.
But it just bothered him. He thought it wasn't really protecting the athlete. It was for show in a large sense. Jack, it says, did you ever see Sugar Ray Leonard live? I did, but I did more than that. I interviewed Leonard up close. I did a TV show once. He was a guest, and I interviewed Leonard when he was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I think it was 1996. In fact, I wrote the story on him in the Hall of Fame program. I saw Leonard live at the end of his career when he lost to Terry Norris at the Garden. And, I interviewed him a week before the fight for the TV show we were doing at that time. And great fighter. Leonard, an all-time great. His career was interrupted with the detached retina. But Leonard had some monster wins, monster fights against Hagler, Hearns, Duran. Great fighter.
Yeah, folks, Jack has interviewed all the big boxers pretty much, or at least have met him or presented him awards. He's been doing this for a long time, so I'm jealous as hell. So let's get to this day in history, Jack. Sandy Koufax, you talked about strikeouts. Sandy Koufax is the first to strike out the side in 9 pitches, Jack. 9 pitches, he struck out the side. The first one to do it. I don't know if anybody's done it afterwards. I mean, we're not talking about 9 in a row. We're talking about 9 pitches, Jack.
I'd love to know what Sandy threw. Was it straight heat? Was it curveballs, sinkers? How many, did they swing out of the strike zone? I saw Sandy Koufax pitch live a couple of times. And what I remember about Sandy Koufax, his pitching style, he pitched over the top. It seemed like he was throwing overhand. he had that great motion. And the pitcher who was closest to him in quality during his prime, the one pitcher who they tried to compare to Sandy was Juan Marichal, who had a ridiculously high leg kick. So between Kovacs and Marichal, they really had their distinct pitching styles.
Yeah, definitely. In 1966, Bill Russell becomes the first black coach in the NBA, Jack. Bill Russell, to me, is the NBA. I mean, if you were to replace the logo of Jerry West, that's the only guy. You could take Michael Jordan, you could take LeBron James.
Well, in 1966, wasn't it a little later? I think that date is wrong.
Well, you can check it out, Jack.
The player coach of the Celtics.
Yes, in
they won the championship then.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, maybe so, but
but I thought it was a couple of years after that.
According to the site, it was 1966. But again, the first African American coach in the NBA. Again, as I was saying, if you were going to put a different logo besides Jerry West on there, this would be the guy. Not only one of the premier rebounders, defensive centers of all time, but a team leader and has more championships than anyone in the history of the NBA.
I got to tell you something, Mac. I don't like when people point out false racism, but when racism exists in a subtle way, I don't like it, agree with it. You talk about the NBA logo. Jerry West was a great, great player. He's definitely worthy of that logo.
Agreed.
But Mac, compare Jerry West to the big O, Oscar Robertson. Who was the greater player?
Yeah,
Who was more worthy of being on the logo between the two, based as not only as players, but the big O always conducted himself as a gentleman as well. He wasn't controversial. So I wouldn't mind it seeing the big O on the logo, at least next to Jerry West. Why can't they both be guarded, bouncing the ball? Why can't the big O be guarding them? Something. And Bill Russell Bill Russell retired. Okay, retired after the Celtics beat the Lakers, upset him in the NBA playoffs. And what people don't remember, the Celtics won the championship that year. They were fourth place team during the regular season, and in the finals against the Lakers, they lost the first two games, then won the next two. Then, the Lakers went up 3-2. Then the Celtics won the last two, really. I agree, West earned it. West is very worthy of being on the
Yeah. I mean,
very worthy.
Right.
But I feel the big O is as well.
All I'm saying is if they were to change the logo, and I don't think they should. I think they should keep with tradition. I think Jerry West is not only was a great player, but a great executive too. I mean, I think he's
absolutely. West should stay on it, but I'd like him to have some company on the logo. You could put a few players on the logo, I believe.
I don't know, Jack. Why change? Why fix something if it ain't broke?
So leave West on the logo. West is very worthy. What he's done as an executive, West has been great for the NBA as a player. And, he's a rarity. West was maybe as great as he was as a player. He was maybe a better executive, one of the great executives of all time in the NBA.
I agree. I agree with that. So in 1995, Joe Montana announces his retirement. A lot of people feel he's the greatest of all time. A lot of things, and we don't got a lot of time left, Jack, seconds. A lot of times being the greatest of all time means being on the greatest team. And I think when we talk about how many Super Bowls somebody won, we kind of forget that he didn't win them. The team did. And this is what drives me crazy about when you try to say the best of all time in anything. Because, you're the greatest of all time because you won a Super Bowl or many Super Bowls. I think that really shouldn't have a lot of bearing on whether you're the greatest of all time because you were on the greatest team maybe of all time.
Well, Montana is very humble. Recently, he said, in his opinion, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think based on accomplishments, because Brady's played longer, it says a lot to have a longer career. At peak value, no one was better than Joe Montana. But then again, you can make an argument: John Unitas, Dan Marino. No real difference.
You sure can, Jack. Dan Marino, John Elway, all of them are great. Folks, have a great day.
Aaron Rodgers, too.
I know that's true. Thanks for joining us on our Sunday This Week in Sports. It's been fun, folks. I'm really glad you were part of the broadcast. We'll be back on Wednesday, reloading, getting ready to do our next 5 broadcasts. Again, thank you for coming in. We enjoyed having you. Have a great Sunday.